Jessica, are we recording? There we go. Perfect. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Arian Olish. I'm the Executive Director for the Office of Student and Faculty Innovation at West Virginia University, and appreciate you all joining us. So as part of the Office of Student and Faculty Innovation and the programming and education that put on, we like to host these monthly webinars where we invite in a representative from one of the federal agencies that provide SBIR and STTR funding to talk about their program, their process, how you can get connected to any resources they have. And so today we are very pleased to have Melinda Coffman with us, who is the USDA SBIR program manager. Melinda has been with the National Institute of Food and Agriculture as the USDA Small Business Innovation and Research and STTR program manager since September of 2020. So a couple years on the job. I'm sure that was a busy time to come on board, Melinda. She manages the program, which administers both phase 1 and phase 2 grants and works closely with the Small Business Administration. Prior to joining the SBIR STTR program, she spent much of her career at the University of Kansas, working in program evaluation, research, consulting, and training. Melinda has a BS in agriculture from Northwest Missouri State University and an MBA from Benedictine College. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melinda to go through her slides. We will have time for Q&A at the end, but if you have questions or thoughts that come up along the way, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll read them out at the end. So Melinda, with that, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm really pleased to be able to just explain a little bit about the USDA SBIR STTR program. It's similar to other SBIR STTR programs, but there are some differences between them. And so hopefully those will be a little bit clearer today. So we are housed within the National Institute of Food and Agriculture at USDA. And we did add the Small Business Technology Transfer, or STTR. We added that last year, and so it's kind of getting up and running, but that is an option if you're thinking about applying. So for all SBIR STTR programs, these are the primary program goals: to stimulate innovations in the private sector, and that's there to strengthen the role of small business in the U.S. and to also increase commercializations of the innovations that are in that small businesses develop, and push those out into the marketplace. And very importantly, to foster and encourage participation by historically underserved individuals. This is our non-discrimination statement. We do take it very seriously. But I will just summarize this first paragraph, but it will be here. I think you will get a copy of the slides after the presentation, and just know that the USDA does take this very seriously. So in accordance with the federal civil rights and U.S. Department of Agriculture civil rights regulations and policy, USDA, its agencies, offices, employees, institutions participating in or administering USDA programs are prohibited from discriminating based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family, parental status, income derived from public assistance, political beliefs, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity in any program or activity conducted or funded by USDA. Remedies and compliant filings deadlines vary by program or incident. So again, this is for all SBIR and STTR programs. There are 3 phases. Phase 1 is just a feasibility phase, proof of concept. So it's typically, in all SBIR programs, it's typically a shorter in duration. So you're just focusing on the science, making sure that your project idea, your project innovation is feasible in the way you thought it was. So you can move on to phase 2. And phase 2 is where a lot happens in phase 2. You're continuing your research and development, but you're also starting to commercialize. So the way I think of it is that in phase, if this hand is research and this hand is commercialization, in phase 1, it's like this. When you come in phase 2, it's like this. And then in phase 3, it switches and you're just really focused primarily on commercialization. Phase 3 is typically not funded by SBIR programs. It's typically funded by other investors, private investors. So our annual budget is around 40 million, and we have phase 1, the awards are range from 125,000 to 175,000. SBIR is for phase 1, it's a 8-month project period, and for STTR, it's a 12-month project period. For phase 2, all awards are 600,000, and those are 24 months in duration. Here are some of the differences, the primary differences between SBIR and STTR. So a lot of it revolves around the percent of time around or your relationship with a non-research institution or federally funded R&D center. Yeah, and oftentimes this is actually a university. So for SBIR, you have the option of doing that. We encourage you to do that, but you don't have to do that. For STTR, you have to partner with a university or a federal lab. And then the percent of participation by a university or federal lab varies between SBIR and STTR. So it's 33% or less for phase 1 and for SBIR, and it's up to 50% for phase 2. It's more for STTR, it's 30 to 60% for both phases. And then a huge advantage is that the primary employment of the principal investigator for SBIR, she or they must be employed with a small business. For STTR, they can either be employed with a small business or the university or nonprofit research institution. So there's more flexibility there. And then there's a formal cooperative agreement that is required for STTR. It is not required for SBIR. This is just kind of a sampling of our success rates. And so sorry, I'm hesitating because we didn't get the FY23 in this slide, and we should have, but it remains steady for phase 1. It's about 15%. It is highly competitive. So because of that, I do suggest that people start working on their applications early. We plan to have an open solicitation for phase 1 in July of 2024. And now is not too soon to just begin a little bit of prep for that. For phase 2, which you can only get, right now we do not have a direct to phase 2. So you can only get a phase 2 if you have successfully completed or on the way to completing a phase 1. But as you can see, those success rates are much higher for phase 2. And then again, for all SBIR and STTR programs, these are the success metrics. Of course, sales of your product or your technology is a big indicator of success. Licensing, being able to license your technology or your innovation is also, and very importantly, new jobs. Any new jobs that are created because of your innovation are definitely a measure of success. Some of the features of the USDA SBIR STTR program are that ideas are investigator initiated. Awards are based on the scientific and technical merit of your innovation. along with the commercial potential of the innovation. And also we look at the PI and company qualifications. And then we talked about subcontracting to university and federal labs. And then we also have technical and business assistance, which is often called TABA or TABA. And what is that? Well, it was introduced as part of the John S. McCain National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2019. This list of things that TABA can include is just a sampling. There are many things surrounding commercialization that TABA can include, and it can be individualized to your company's needs. So this is just a small sampling, and if there's something else that you need and it's directly linked to commercialization, then you can probably use TABA funds for it. And this is the budget for TABA funds. Now, it's very important to know that this is not part of your award budget. This is the USDA, and actually I think all the SBIR programs pays for this on top of your budget. So this is just kind of an added bonus, but you do have to ask for it and apply for it. So for phase one, it's $6,500. And that $6,500 is really used to build, to work with an organization or some individuals, because you can build your own TABA, to build a commercialization plan for phase two, because commercialization, again, is going to become more important in phase two. So you want to have a really solid commercialization plan for your phase two application. And then in phase two, and if you're awarded phase two, then you get $50,000, and that is to accelerate that commercialization, to really work on getting your innovation out there in the market. These are our topic areas. And so these have been designed to be very broad and to encompass all of agricultural science. And so these 10 topic areas, while they are very broad, each individual one is also very broad. So sometimes people find that their innovation fits into more than one topic area. And so we have ways of helping you with that. So I'll talk about that as we go along. But as you can see, we have everything from forestry, and of course we have plant production and protection. That's such a large area that we had to split it into two. One's engineering focused, one's biology focused. Of course, we have animal production and protection, conservation, natural resources, air, soil, and water. Food science and nutrition is a very large topic area. It's very important, and it has lots of elements to it. We have aquaculture, biofuels, and bio-based products. Now, these other two, 8.6 and 8.12, that are in a lighter blue, the reason, and they have an asterisk, is because they're a little bit different than the other 8. In that one, you don't have to have an innovation. You can use off-the-shelf technology as long as you apply it in an innovative way. And so that's only true for those two. Those are also the two that for phase one are funded at $125,000, while the other 8 are funded at $175,000. This slide is just kind of a reminder that agriculture involves science. And so if you have a scientific innovation, it might be worth taking some time to think about whether or not there is an agricultural application for that innovation, because there very well might be. These are our typical program timelines. So we can't guarantee that they work like this every year, but most years they do. Sometimes they get hung up in the approval process, but most years, phase one is released in July. The proposal deadline is September or October. This year it was September. The reviews and rewards are December through February, and then the start date is always July 1 for phase 1. And then phase 2, again, it's only open to phase 1 awardees. And the solicitation, actually, it's released in December, but it was released this week, just because we weren't sure if we were going to be if we were going to have another continuing resolution or what was going to happen there. So we got it released early. So phase 2 is open now if any of you are phase 1 awardees. The proposal deadline falls in March. Reviews and award notifications are April through June, and then the start date is September 1 for phase 2s. This is a little bit about our review process. Their proposals are all evaluated by a confidential peer review panel, and we use outside experts from many from universities, but also from industry, like retired industry professionals, so they don't have any conflict of interest, nonprofits, and federal labs. All applications receive verbatim copies of the reviews. So the reviewers give you feedback if because it with that 15% success rate for phase 1, of course, sometimes it's necessary to apply more than once. And so you will get feedback from the panel that is intended to make your proposal more competitive. So that feedback is there actually to help you, even though sometimes it isn't perceived that way, but that is why it's there. So you can reapply, and for phase 2, you can only apply once for phase 2. So if you've won a phase 2 and you don't, there's no pressure to apply at the first opportunity. We want you to make your phase 2 application as complete as possible and to make your best effort at it. So if you need to wait a cycle for your phase 2, that is perfectly fine. So this is about U.S. University and government scientists' involvement in SBIR, not STTR, but just SBIR. So scientists can serve as consultants, or they can receive a subcontract and continue to work full-time at their home institution. They're limited to no more than 1/3 of the phase 1 and 1/2 of phase 2 award. This is again for SBIR. Scientists can serve as a PI by reducing their employment at their home institution to 49% or less for the duration of the grant. It's usually not acceptable for these scientists to use their government or university facilities, their labs. You have to look for other lab facilities for the project. And then this is about STTR, the University and Government Scientists' Involvement in STTR. So the PI can be employed with the small business or the research institution, which is a big advantage for some small businesses, that you don't have to reduce your time at the university. It can be either. And that does remind me, I do want to emphasize that it's always the small business that applies. So there's been some confusion around STTR. For instance, if it's a university professor or a university staff that's applying, whether it has to be, whether they have to, the university is applying or the small business. But for SBIR and STTR, it is always the small business that's applying. So STTR, you can, the small business still has to perform 40% of the work on the project. And then the research institution has to do at least 30%, but they can go up to 60%, or the other 30% can be outsourced to a second research institution or another subcontractor. Cooperative research and development agreements, or CRADAs. These are really, really great opportunities, I think. It is important. This is an opportune time to start. If this is something that you think you might be interested in, this is a very opportune time to reach out to the Agricultural Research Service, the Technology Transfer Office there, and to ask about if there's a match between your innovation and any work that a federal lab is doing. So some of the, you get an advantage within panel in that if there are two proposals that are deemed to be of equal value in the panel process, but one of them has a CRADA and the other does not, then the one with the CRADA automatically gets it. But there are also other advantages in that you can use, if there's a match and you can get a CRADA agreement there, you can use their lab equipment, their lab facilities. Those are free to you. And so that's a big advantage. The only thing you would have to, if you needed a piece of equipment that lab didn't have, then you would have to purchase that. But it's really something I encourage people to look into. These next few slides are just some advice about how to increase your chances of award success. So make sure that you have your project, your innovation, and your proposal shows the highest scientific merit or technical merit along with the commercial potential. So doing both. For phase one, you want to focus your proposal and your application on the scientific and technical merit of your project, but you do want to just touch on the commercial potential. So that's good. And then I also wanted to tell you, explain that this bullet saying balance of high risk and high reward, we do really value high risk, high reward projects, but not to the exclusion of medium risk, medium reward. We like sure things also, but we also recognize that small businesses are often like disruptors of sectors or industries, and we want to support that. So we really do consider high risk, high reward, along with medium risk, medium reward. Make sure you have good consultants, and that's where a CRADA agreement could come in, and that you have access to some business expertise, either on your team or through a consultant. And then letters of support. Letters of support are really quite important. So if you can get letters of support from potential investors or end users, customers, there's not a certain number you have to have. It depends on the strength of your letters of support. So if you have some major investors that are interested, then you probably only need letters from them. But if you're going to be getting letters from potential future customers, then you may want to have 3 or 4 of them. But there isn't a number. It just depends on. You just want to demonstrate that there's interest out there in your product. And then even in phase one, you do, that piece where you kind of touch on the commercial potential for your innovation. You do want to create a clear understanding of how you're going to enter the market. And once you're in the market, how you're going to sustain yourself in the market. And this is a little bit about the application process for phase one. These are just practical things, but if you're pretty sure you're going to apply for any SBIR, it doesn't have to be USDA, but NSF anywhere, then you want to register with SBIR.gov. But I do believe first you have to register with SAM.gov, and that is the little bit of the tricky piece, and the reason why I'm encouraging you to do it now, if you're even thinking about it, it's free to register at sam.gov, but it can take a while. It can take up to 7 weeks. I've seen it actually take more than that when they're having some difficulties. So kind of getting that out of the way, I really encourage people to do that. And if you already have a sam.gov number and you're planning to apply for any SBIR grant, just make sure it does have an annual renewal. It isn't as burdensome as the initial sign up, but still don't let that pass you by. We have people that we have small businesses that miss our deadline every year because they don't have their sam.gov number. So the earlier the better. And so you get your sam.gov number, and then you register with SBIR, and that allows you to create an account on grants.gov, and that's where you'll actually apply. The application materials will be on grants.gov. So the biggest advice I can give you is read the RFA. So when the RFA is released in July, just really get to know that RFA and read it, and be very familiar with it. Now you can, I say this with a little caution, you can, on our website, there is last year's RFA, which closed September 19th. You can look at that because it will be really similar. But please do not apply using that one, because there'll be some small but critical changes that will need to be addressed with the new one. But you can get an idea of what is going to be expected. So things like the project narrative, it's unlikely that will change. So you could take a look at that, because that's where a lot of the work is going to go into describing your innovation. So, and this is where following the format for the guidelines for format and page limits and all that, that's can change from year to year. We're going to try very hard to keep it the same, but it isn't always completely up to the SBIR team. Sometimes it's up to our organization, NIFA, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. So, so that can change, and so that's why one of the reasons why you have to make sure that you are actually applying to the you're building your project in response to the active RFA. It's fine to use older RFAs to get some idea, but please respond to the open RFA. And then just make sure that your application responds to all the review criteria, and that will be listed in the RFA. And it's more advice for phase 1 application. Do just take a moment in your application to provide a vision, to tell the reviewers. You're going to have a panel of reviewers that are experts in the field. And, tell them just briefly what your dream is. What is your vision? What is your dream? And sell the importance of the project and align it with the USDA priorities that are listed in the RFA. And then you do have to provide that detailed research plan, because that's what they'll be looking at, that very closely, and then provide some of that insight into the commercial potential. And then again, the letters of support are important. There are lots of assistance, there are organizations out there. So we really encourage people to use them. There are small business development centers. There are at least 62 of them across the United States. There's at least one in each state, and they help provide support to small businesses that are applying for SBIR and STTR grants. There's a FAST program, Federal, State, and Partnership program, that works with underrepresented and small business owners, and small businesses that are serving rural areas. So those are great programs. You can get some funding to help write your grant with those. And then at the bottom here is kind of my personal favorite website for assistance with SBIR. It's that you put in your state and it will populate all the assistance organizations. So that's really helpful. And then you can call around to them and tell them what you need and see what they offer, because different assistance organizations offer slightly different things. Some of them have classes that last, a 6-week period or 4-week period, and that really help you build that application, which is really helpful. We have been for the last 2 years, we've been doing a lot of outreach to underrepresented groups, small businesses, I should say. And so we provided outreach, we provide at least 3 virtual overviews per month, like this. And we've started going out in the community also to do, we've been traveling to do more in-person outreach with underrepresented small business owners. We work closely with the Small Business Administration. They administer all the SBIR, STTR programs. So all the SBIR programs work closely with the SBA. And they have started road tours again. Road tours are where they were happening regularly before COVID. And then they had to stop. And last year they had 1. And then this year they're having 4 in person and 1 virtual. The virtual one is in January. And that's where we go out to a certain region of the country. It's representatives from all SBIR programs or most SBIR programs, and give small business owners an opportunity to talk one-on-one with those representatives. And then again, we've also added, last year we added a contractor to help us with outreach to underrepresented groups. That's ICF Next. And we did that to, I guess in a nutshell, to work smarter at our goal. We wanted to increase the depth and breadth of our outreach. And so we are working with ICF Next to identify organizations, conferences, like Women in Science. I was at the National Society for Black Engineers in August. And so we're trying to target those and just build awareness about USDA SBIR. And it does seem like we're having some success. We'll be going in December to the Navajo Nation to reach out to do a presentation for them and to reach out to them. So we're just these slides are here to tell you that we're very welcoming of both underrepresented small business owners applying for our grants and also businesses located in hub zones. These are just a few success stories, and I'll go through them pretty quickly. But just to give you kind of a sampling of these, this is Prairie Aquatech, and they had success really fairly quickly. They have a natural process. It converts soybean meal to fish feed, and they do that by using microbial enhancement. And their product is called MePro, and as you can see here, they've had a lot of success. They really took off pretty fast. Stony Creek Colors. These success stories were also chosen to show you kind of the breadth of things that we do in USDA, because we do everything from, very highly scientific, technical, like AI type of things, to something like Stony Creek Colors, which has a female CEO, and they develop a natural dye to replace synthetic dyes, there's probably a fairly good chance that your blue jeans or you have used this indigo dye. And they've had a lot of success and continue to have a lot of success. And then Sunsite Wind, which is a minority-owned small business, and they have some really, what I think is exciting technology. They have this small wind turbines that can be put on rooftops, actually, and it can compete with solar, and it can even work in low wind speed areas. And so this is very exciting. They continue to make progress. They've had 7 grants from us to develop this technology. We're very excited to see them take off more and more each year. And then Embrex is an older success story, but we leave it in here just because it was pretty dramatic and just to make sure people know that this is possible. They developed a higher throughput and superior technology for ovo vaccination, and it provides benefits to enhance efficiency and bird performance. So they had success in 2001. They had $44 million in revenues, and they were soon after that purchased by Pfizer. So that was a huge success story. This is our brochure. It's a fairly new brochure. We worked really hard on it. We're pretty proud of it. We'd love it if you would take a look at the brochure on our website. And this is the link. Again, I'm Melinda Coffman. I'm the SBIR program coordinator. Dr. David Songstad is our national program leader for SBIR. He is also over 8.8, which is biofuels and bio-based products. And if you find yourself in that position where you can't decide which topic area, because again, they're broad, your innovation fits into, then you can ask for a consult from Dr. Songstad. And while he can't really advise you, he can just give you more insight about just about the different topic areas. And it might clarify you which topic area is the best to use. And then we have 2 really superior program specialists. We're very fortunate to have Tammy Neville and Dr. Nurun Nahar. So we have a great stellar staff, feel free to reach out to any of us. I'm going to stop sharing, and if there are any questions, I would be more than happy to answer those.
Wonderful. Thanks, Melinda. Does anybody have questions that they would like to ask right now? You can either put them in the chat, or you can just go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll call on people to unmute and ask their questions. No questions right now. All right. Well, while people are thinking about if they have any questions,
Sure.
a few kind of housekeeping things. So one, we did record this session today. So if you had colleagues that weren't able to join but did want to listen in, we can provide the recording link. Also, if you just, happen to miss something or want to go back and re-listen to it, let us know, and you can go back through and we can send you the recording. One of the other things that I wanted to mention, because it dovetails in nicely, many of you know, we run the NSF I-Corps Innovation Corps program for the state of West Virginia, which is a very nice entree or pre-step into SBIR STTR funding. With our hub, with our refunding that we received last year, we now run hybrid courses, which are courses that are topically themed in one area. And we do all of our pre-work online, and then we take everybody to a conference. Our next upcoming hybrid is the Ag Tech one. So it's all focused on agricultural technology. Jessica can drop the application link in. Applications for that cohort do close November 22nd. But what we're doing is we'll do the first 2 weeks of coursework online virtually, just like we would a hybrid course. And then we're paying for everybody to go to the, I might get the title wrong, American Farm Bureau Association meeting. Did I get that right, Jess? I think that's correct. Okay, so that is a fully paid trip for you and your team to go. And what we do there is we'll do some courses, short courses with you in the morning, and then we let you do all of your customer discovery at that conference. And we constantly, your business coaches will be working with you as you go out and do that customer discovery. It is a great opportunity for anybody who has kind of ag tech related innovations or startups that they're working on. Really, really great way to make connections, identify customers, get real world feedback on your idea. So if you're interested, you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to talk to you about that. But it is a really great pre-step and will help you with your SBIR STTR application. So we always recommend the I-Core program if people have not participated in that program yet. Any
That's
questions?
You know, one thing that I didn't mention that I'll just throw out there is, again, I did mention that you want to follow the RFA and the guidelines, but when the opportunity closes, the first thing we do is go into an administrative review and make sure that everybody followed the guidelines, so that they have all the required attachments and that they use the right format to upload their required documents, that they followed the guidelines in the project narrative for spacing and font size. And if the problem is, if you don't, then you don't get out of administrative review. Your proposal isn't pushed onto panel. And we have about a fifth of our, roughly a fifth of our applicants that do not ever make it to panel. So that is just really, important, because we understand that in that, 20% that don't make it to panel, that there's some really great ideas in there, and that it's seemingly a minor thing that held them up from moving on to panel. But the other way to look at that, and the reason there are these rules, is if somebody, for instance, uses single spacing for their project narrative when they're supposed to use 1.5 spacing, then the person who uses single spacing got a lot more opportunity to describe their project, and that in the interest of fairness, we can't do it that way. So those rules aren't there just to be punitive; they're there for a reason. I just really want to emphasize, please, to follow those.
Great. We have a couple questions in the chat, Melinda. I'll read out the first one. You can answer that and we'll go into the second one. So the first question is, if the July deadline holds, when would you anticipate the RFA being released?
No, July would be the release date. And then it will close either in late September or early October, probably late September. There have been times it's closed in November. There are some things that are kind of out of our control. But if you sign, you can go to, I really encourage people to go to grants.gov and sign up if they're interested, because you'll get notified when it's released, and then you'll see the closing date.
Great. Next question here. Are there education and technical program opportunities associated with this grant?
If the question is, are there topic areas that have educational, is that, Jerry, kind of what you're asking? Are there topic areas that include educational and technical programming opportunities? I'll just kind of assume that's what you're asking.
Yes, ma'am. But specifically, we have a documented commercial demand for the program. I just trying to explore if this is the right route, and in the interest of full disclosure, the original program, educational program we put together, we did receive, it was a NIFA, there was some NIFA funding that helped us put the original program together, and so maybe that disqualifies us. That's my question.
Sure. So two things about that. You can't you can't have the same project. You can't receive funding, grant funding twice for the same project across the federal government, not just even in USDA, but across. So if it's the same project, then, and you've already received funding, then no. But the other thing I wanted to say is, we do have opportunities within our topic areas, for instance, for educational projects, especially in rural and community development. So that rural and community development, it encompasses many things, and it can include, like, we had a very successful awardee who had a virtual learning program for children. And she continues to be very successful. And we've had several of those in rural and community development. So that's also an opportunity.
And Melinda, just to clarify that on the kind of the double dipping of funding, if you will, on the same project, Jerry, you can have the same project funded on different grants, but you have to have different outcomes, right? So it can't be that you're getting outcomes to reach the same specific milestones, but maybe you had NIFA funding, and now through that funding, your project has kind of evolved, and now you're moving on to version 2.0. You can still go after this funding to get version 2.0 accomplished. It just really, there has to be a difference in what the goal is for that funding, for how to use that funding, if that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am. And I think we could be kind of skirting an issue, but originally this program was funded partly through a NIFA grant, and it was specifically focused only on the beef sector. And we've grown that program effort now, and there's a huge rural demand. So that's an enticing avenue to explore the community development, because there's a huge need for this programming, and the primary thing we're trying to do is make it a virtual programming. So there's potential here. I don't want to get, in a bad spot, and then, but ultimately we've expanded the program to include all livestock species and poultry. And so the program is much different today than what NIFA was. It was a very narrow focused program and very small in scope. It's a much changed program now.
Yeah. And that's a great example, Jerry, of what works. You can't submit this, get funded for the same proposal, but there can be derivatives of that proposal. So, if your proposal was originally geared towards cattle, and then you found, you were able to do some changes and do other livestock, then those are considered distinct proposals. It's just the same one. It gets a little complicated, but if you ever have a question about that for USDA SBIR, then Dr. David Songstead would be a person to talk to.
The other thing I was going to mention, for those of you on the call which I think is the majority of you, who have businesses or are planning to have a business that is registered in the state of West Virginia, just want you to be aware, the state of West Virginia, I should say, not to be confused with West Virginia State University, but the state of West Virginia has a matching SBIR and STTR program. So if you apply and are awarded a phase 1 or 2, that the state will provide up to a 50% match on that award. And we also have something called the phase 0 program. So just for applying to an SBIR or STTR, regardless of whether or not you were successful, you can receive $2,500 back from the state for that application. And that's great to help cover costs if you need to hire a consultant, or maybe you need somebody to help you set up some accounting processes, or work with a legal counsel to help, work on some agreements or something like that. So please do keep that in mind. We're happy to send you information about that state program, but it's like extra free money to help your startup company. So we want to make sure people are aware of that and tap into that as much as possible. We've got just a few minutes left. So any other last questions for Melinda? All right. Well, again, thank you all very much for joining us. Like I mentioned, this is being recorded. So if you would like a copy of the recording, please let us know. We're happy to send it. And Melinda, just big thank you again for taking the time today to come in and educate everybody on this. We really appreciate it.
Sure. And I will send you our slides if you want to
Perfect.
send them. Okay.
That would be great. Thank you so much. Take care.